If you have a US Krag Jorgensen, then you know how hard it is to find and how expensive 30-40 ammunition is. The typical solution to that problem, to reload, doesn't work either. New, or even once fired 30-40 brass is also impossible to find. And of course what can be found is either expensive, or old and potentially brittle, or both. But there is a source of brass that's plentiful and inexpensive comparably: 303 British. If you collect milsurps like I do, you probably already have something chambered in 303. I have a few, so I picked out the brass from the rifle with the tightest chamber. 303 British is very close dimensionally to 30-40 Krag. The rim thickness, the rim diameter, and the base diameter, those are the critical dimensions, the ones that set the headspace, fill the chamber, and provide a gas seal. And they're all nearly identical. The main difference in the 303 British case is the length. It's roughly 1/10 of an inch, or 2.5 millimeters shorter than 30-40. But looking at the 30-40, it has a very long neck compared to most milsurp cartridges. That long neck can afford a bit trimmed off of it, and still have enough left to support a bullet. More on this later. For now, I'll be converting 5 pieces of brass as a test. To resize these, I'll first anneal the cases. The sizing die will push the shoulder back quite a bit, so the brass will need to be softened to not be crushed, and also to prevent cracking. The driver with the socket will hold the case, allowing it to be spun for even heating, as well as to prevent overheating the base, as the socket will block the flame. I'm looking for the color to change to purple at the neck. I don't want the color to permeate too far down the case. However, any softness will be work hardened right back into the brass as a result of the cartridge conversion. And that's what's next. I'm setting up the 30-40 full-length sizing die. The shell holder is the same as 303 British. In fact, most manufacturers list them as fitting both calibers. The die I'll screw down until it touches, and then another quarter turn. I'm looking for the press to cam over at the end of the stroke, like so. To size, I'm using Imperial sizing wax. An even coating around the shoulder and the body will make sizing much easier. I'm going slow when feeding into the sizing die to prevent any crushing or cracking. The wax, the annealed brass, and the heavy-duty press bolted to a solid workbench make this a fairly easy conversion. Here's the reformed case, compared to an unconverted 303 British, and then to the 30-40 Krag. The only noticeable difference compared to what I started with is in the shoulder. Now to load this up. Now to seat the bullet. I already have the seating die set to depth, but if I were to be setting it up from scratch, I'll screw it down until it touches the shell holder, and then back it off a half turn. This provides enough clearance for the case body, but due to the shorter brass, this die can't be used to crimp, which is okay since I don't crimp rifle rounds. These are the bullets that I'll use. They're the same as in the already loaded rounds, 220 grain round nose. I specifically chose these bullets for the converted 303 brass due to the flat base and the long straight walls of the bullet. I can seat them to the same overall length as the bullet in the 3040 brass. The cantilever will be showing outside of the case mouth, however there's more than enough neck to hold the bullet. Compare that to this much lighter 150 grain boat tail bullet. If I seated it to the same length as the 3040 brass, with the cantilever at the case mouth, then there wouldn't be enough neck to hold the bullet. I'd need to seat it deeper, with the cantilever at the case mouth of the shorter 303 brass, in order to have enough of the bullet within the neck. If I were to do this, I need to start load development from scratch to account for the reduced case capacity caused by the deeper set bullet. I'll use the already loaded round to set the seating depth. With the ram up, I'll screw down the seating stem so it touches. This will ensure the bullet is set to the same overall length. Then I'll compare the rounds. These two are the same overall length, but with the shorter brass of the converted 303 on the right, the bullet's cantilever is showing. Now to test these out on the range.
Put these back in.
The 303 brass fed, fired, and extracted just fine, and there's no signs of it cracking. Here is a comparison against the 3040 brass that I also fired. Other than the length, the two are virtually identical. There is one issue, however. I don't want these pieces of brass to be confused for 303 British. I'll change the head stamp. To do so, I have the perfect support, a Krag barrel, which I'll mount in the vise. This will hold the brass securely and give me access to the bottom. I'll use these number stamps to add the 40 to the 30 and 303. This 4 will go over the latter 3. Then add the 0. And last, I'll use this uppercase I sideways to cross out the rest of the British head stamp. It's not perfect, but now I can differentiate these from my normal 303 brass. Converting the easily obtainable 303 British brass to 3040 Krag is a straightforward process that can be used to get these old rifles shooting again. Thanks for watching.